Hi folks, Dave, the Honest Audiophile. This is the Fiio FT1, and these are my Honest Audiophile impressions. The Fiio FT1 will set you back $160 from your bank account. It is a closed-back over-ear headphone with a 60mm dynamic driver, 32 ohms of impedance, 93 decibels of sensitivity, and a frequency response range of 10 Hz to 40 kHz. The Fiio FT1 comes in this black box. You get a picture on the front, a little bit of branding, and we have a high-res sticker. It's got to sound good. On the back side, you don't really get any information. Taking off that sleeve, and you're greeted by a black box, nothing on it. When you open up that black box, you get a carrying case. The carrying case is the similar color to what the faceplate of the headphone is. We have the black walnut in for review. You can also get the Fiio FT1 in beach, which is a very light tan color. A little bit of branding here on the carrying case. Nice hard shell, and you get a little carrying loop. Unzip it, and you have enough room for the headphones and a couple of cables. The carrying case is very nice and should fit in most bags. Unfortunately, it does not have any pockets for the cables to sit in. Cables. These are the only accessories that you get with the FT1. You get two fabric cables. They are the identical length, and they connect into the headphones with 3.5s. There is a mark with L and R on each. You get one that terminates into a 3.5 with a 1/4-inch adapter, and then you also get one that terminates with a 4.4. The cables are a bit on the stiff side. I wish that they had a little bit more softness and a little bit lighter. They do have a rather chunky termination as well. But overall, the cable is okay. It's just not my favorite. And it's very similar to the other Fiio cables, if you're familiar with the ones that came with the FT3 and the FT5 and others. So it's an okay cable, not the greatest. Then you get the FT1. Now the FT1, as mentioned, does come with two different faceplates. You can either get the black walnut, which we have here, which is nice smooth wood and a little bit on the darker brown side. And then you can also get it in beach, and beach is more tan colored. The build of the FT1 feels very, very nice. You have this nice smooth wood faceplate, metal yokes and slider, a little bit of swivel. You get a little bit of branding here on each side. It says Fiio. Nice smooth motion for the sliders. There is no clicky stops, but it has a little bit of a feel to it. You can feel it as it moves up, and then you just kind of guess at where you want it placed. The headband is a little bit on the thin side. Not much of a pad here on the bottom of the headband, and it's a bit on the stiff side. Wasn't really able to get it to stretch out much, so it could be a problem for fit for some. It might be a little too snug. You have L and R on the inside of the cups. They are oval shaped, and that could also cause some fit issues for some ears. For me, I have just enough room for the cups for my ears to fit inside, and then the slider, it fits my head. It's a little bit on the clampy side. I get a little bit of force right here on the bottom of the jaw, but other than that, they're fairly comfortable. I can wear the Fiio FT1 for a few hours before I have to really adjust them, take them off. As far as hotness, they don't really get that warm for me, at least now during the winter months. Who knows what'll happen when it gets in the warmer months. The pads are replaceable. You can pull them off, but I find the stock pads to be extremely comfortable. You have leather with a fabric mesh on the side that goes against your face. And as far as isolation of outside noises, FT1's okay when it comes to that regard. Probably 55-60% of outside noises being blocked. It muffles a lot of louder noises, but you can definitely still hear things. Conversations are muffled as long as the person enunciates and talks louder. You can carry down when the music is paused. Louder things, vacuum cleaners, coffee grinders, louder vehicles, you can hear them go by. They're just a little bit on the muffled side. So not the greatest at isolation, but pretty decent. Once the music starts rolling, you're not going to have any issues of hearing things around you. The Fiio FT1 is well built, looks nice, and the cable connects very easily into the headphone itself. So you take your cable, you find the one that says right, and you just plug it in, and then you plug the one into the left. And when you put it on your ears, there's enough room, even though the cables aren't really at an angle, there's enough room between shoulder and collarbone so that it's not touching. I do find that the cable does kind of make some noise inside the ear cups a little bit. So just don't touch the cable and you'll be fine in that regard. The Fiio FT1, 32 ohms of impedance, 93 decibel sensitivity. They do take a little bit of power to drive. You don't need anything super powerful. Most desktop and DAP should be able to drive them. Dongles will be a little bit more hit or miss. I found that a lot of dongles will get it loud, but it did not sound like it was being powered very well. So give it some more oomph and it'll bring out a little bit more. Things will sound a little bit on the bloated side and a little bit muffled when underpowered. Adding in some more power will bring things out and clean things up a little bit. So I do recommend that. I mostly use them on desktop, and I use them with the Mytek Liberty DAC 2 and also the Fiio K19, Fiio K9 AKM, and the Xduo XA02, and had no issues. External amplifiers that I used it with also were the Mytek HPA and the Drop SMSL HO150X, and Drop 1 Linear, and several others. So the Fiio FT1, how do they sound? The Fiio FT1's bass is quite impressive. It has a nice impact to it. It has nice deepness to it, and there's good texture. I found that the bass has a very nice fun factor to it. There's rumble and grumble in the sub bass. It extends nicely there, and you get some going on, especially on bassier tracks. Mid bass has some nice punch and kick and slam. And then the upper bass also has a little bit of impact there. It does not bleed into the lower mids though, which is nice. It stays fairly well controlled. The only times I really noticed any issues with the FT1's bass was on extremely heavy hitting bass, and also on more complex tracks. The bass got a little bit confused and a little bit jumbled and mumbled up, and it didn't quite resolve as well those very complex tracks. But for the most part, the bass is fairly well controlled, and it has a nice deep impact punch and slam, and it'll keep the toes tapping and the arms flailing if you're an air drummer. The bass has good tonality to it, and it also has a nice well controlled details and resolution. Going into the mids, I found that the mids are very energetic. They are somewhat forward, especially in the upper mids region. And unfortunately, at times, they come across as bright and shouty. The mids have a very much an exuberant energy. There's good clarity throughout. And like the bass, it has nice note weight, but it is a little bit thinner in the upper mids. As you go up into the upper mids, it does thin out just a little bit, and it becomes more forceful. And if you're sensitive to upper mid presence, the FT1 may come across as being too shouty and too bright. They have a good tonality in the mids, Unfortunately, though, those upper mids, where they are more elevated and more forced and pushed, can sound somewhat artificial at times, coming across as just being a little bit too stretched and a little bit too forced. And instruments like strings, the higher reaching brass and woodwind instruments, will sound a little bit just artificial on the top end. But overall, I find that the mids have a nice energy about them, and decent tone and timbre, and good detail retrieval and resolution. The upper mids can have a little bit more of graininess and grittiness, just because they're a little bit too forced and too elevated. Treble is a very vibrant, it's very exuberant, like the upper mids. That has this just presence about it, and they will come across as being a bit hot, and they have nice extension, but unfortunately it's just a little bit too much intensity on the treble, and there is a lot of vibrance in the treble. The tonality, like the bass and the mids, for the most part is pretty natural. It does have a tendency to sound a little bit artificial when it is in those certain types of instruments. Brass instruments, woodwinds, and strings can sound just a little bit too forced, a little bit stretched, because they are a little bit more elevated. The treble has nice extension, good air and space throughout the mids and the bass and the treble, and overall I find that it's a little bit inconsistent, and it's a bit forced in the upper mids and treble regions, and it's a little bit too forward. But for the most part, the bass, the mids, and the treble have a very dynamic, a very full, very immersive type of presentation, and it is a very energetic, vibrant exuberance. Soundstage of the Fiio FT1 is cramped. It is a very crowded soundstage. It is a very small soundstage. Does not do a very good job of revealing sizes of venues: small, medium, large, and grand. Everything sounds small. It really shrinks things down and puts everything like right here. It is not a very big, expansive stage. I understand this is a closed back headphone, but there are closed back headphones that do a good job with revealing differences in venues, and FT1 is not one of them. It is a very small, cramped stage. I find, though, that inside this small, cramped stage, that the FT1 does a good job with imaging. You can really track things across the stage. I was rather impressed at how well it does at placement. You can go, that's right there, and you can follow things across. Within the small stage, everything moves, and you can follow it very much relentlessly. It's right there. Oh, it changed, and you can just follow things. If you like to diagnose the stage, you can do that with the FT1. It also has nice depth. You can look into a stage very well. Even though it's small this way, it has nice depth this way. Also does a good job with layering. The only times that the FT1 really struggled were on more complex types of tracks and super heavy bass hitting type of tracks. Then it got a little bit discombobulated and a little bit confused and melded things together. But for the most part, the imaging, depth, and layering of the FT1 is exceptional, especially considering it's a $160 headphone. Detail retrieval is also really, really good. It's above average for the cost of the FT1. I was impressed at how much details the FT1 gave. I never felt like I was missing something. And in fact, there were several times when I was like, wow, I don't normally hear that, or have I heard that before? The FT1 does a really good job with detail retrieval. Resolution of those details, though, is a little bit on the mediocre side. It gets confused, and it doesn't resolve things as well on harder, heavier hitting bass and more complex tracks. And it also doesn't do a really good job in the upper mids and treble regions, where things become a little bit glassy, glary, and tinny and shiny sounding. There is a little bit of glassiness and glariness, and it just isn't as resolved. It doesn't do as good in those areas. It becomes a little bit unfocused. It's not as refined and defined. The bass, it does better, and other than those busy, heavier hitting bass tracks, So the resolution is kind of mediocre on the FT1. Tone and timbre of the FT1 is, for the most part, pretty natural and pretty accurate to reproducing instruments and vocalists. The only times that I really noticed it were when things were in those upper mids and treble regions, and it was it just didn't sound quite as natural as the bass and lower mids regions. Note weight was a little bit thinner in those areas of the upper mids and treble region, and that kind of added into the note weight and added into the tone and timbre just not being quite as natural as it is in the other areas. The note weight is thicker in the lower mids and in the bass regions, and so it's a little bit of a not even and cohesive sound. So the Fiio FT1, interesting headphone, and it has a presentation that you don't normally get. And unfortunately, even with its, pretty decent tone and timbre and detail retrieval and average mediocre-ish resolution, there's one thing that really stood out, and that was that cramped, upfront, very brash, energetic, punchy, yet detailed, relentless, intense presentation. It did not matter the source that I was using. It did not matter the track I was listening to. It always presented in your face. The sound staging of the FT1 is very much in your face. It's like somebody who has no idea about personal space. They always have to be right here. They have to be this far from your face, and they talk at an incredibly loud volume. They have this big, boisterous, powerful type of voice, and then their intensity is, and it's always like that. And if you take a step back, that person takes a step forward. You cannot get away from it. If you move, they move with you. And you're just like, back off. I need a little bit of space. That's the way the FT1 presents. It doesn't matter the volume. It doesn't matter the track. It doesn't matter the source. They're always, always intense, and they're relentless in it. And it's just like, I've never had a headphone that gave me a headache faster than the Fiio FT1. How does the FT1 compare to a couple other headphones? So it's sibling, the Fiio Jade Audio JT1. JT1, not nearly as well built. It's extremely light, feels a little bit flimsy. And the JT1 is basically like the FT1, just not as good. It has a thinner note weight, and it has a more intensity to it. It's basically the FT1, just not as good. How does the Fiio FT1 compare to my daily driver studio monitor, the Rode NTH-100? So the Rode NTH-100, in my opinion, is built a little better, a little bit more comfortable to wear. The ear cups are a little bit more comfortable, has a little bit more padding up top, and I find that the NTH-100 has a more superior presentation at a lesser cost than the FT1. The NTH-100 is more accurate with its details and resolution. It has a more natural tone and timbre, and it is more neutral. It's more controlled. It does not have as many issues when it comes to the heavier bass hitting tracks and more complex tracks. It does a better job of resolving those type of tracks. The NTH-100 is more balanced. It's more cohesive, and it's way less aggressive. I find that the NTH-100, in my opinion, is just a better headphone than the FT1. And then the Austrian Audio HX60, another headphone that I use on a daily basis. This is my reference studio monitor, and I find that the Austrian Audio HX60 is just superior in all ways. It's better built, metal build, it's more comfortable, And also I find that the HiX60 is more neutral, more natural sounding, more accurate, better detailed, better resolving, and it has a bigger, wider, deeper soundstage, better at layering and imaging. And overall, I just find that the Austrian Audio HiX60 is just a superior headphone. If you're looking for a studio monitor to use, I recommend this headphone. I understand this is more expensive than the FT1. But I would take both the NTH-100 and Austrian Audio HiX60s over the Fiio FT1. I find that the Fiio FT1, with its very cramped and upfront type of staging, it's very brash, energetic, punchy presentation throughout with the bass, the mids, and the treble. And then it's very detailed, but not really that good at resolving. It's relentless and intense presentation. Just, whew, it's a headache waiting. The Fiio FT1 is one of the most intense, upfront, fatiguing presentations I've ever heard. And the Fiio FT1, it doesn't matter the track, it doesn't matter the source. It is always in your face all the time. And I don't like that. It's been Dave, the Honest Audiophile. Thank you for watching. And I'll catch you next time. Speaking of next time, somewhere on the screen, subscription links, notification bells. If you haven't already, please check those off. Don't forget to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to the video and check out all the links down below. There's all kinds of information regarding how you can contact the channel, follow the channel, support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, I want to thank my supporters through Patreon and YouTube memberships, and also one-time gifts being given. I do greatly appreciate all that is provided to the channel. It is much appreciated. If you're interested in supporting the channel, there's various ways that you can do that. One-time gifts through PayPal, Venmo, and YouTube, or monthly subscriptions with Patreon and YouTube memberships. With the monthly subscriptions, you also can get early access to videos and some other benefits on my Discord server. So if you're interested in supporting the channel, check out all those links down below. Speaking of my Discord server, it is open to the public. If you're interested in joining that, check out that link. And then lastly, don't forget to check out all the other links. All kinds of information, music recommendations, gear recommendations, and all kinds of other things are listed down below. And lastly, don't forget to enjoy the music and that honesty is the best policy.